Captain Nasir's wrists ached against the cold metal cuffs. The restraints bit into his skin, slick with sweat and blood, but he didn't flinch. Pain was a familiar companion. He had danced with it on too many battlefields to count. The chamber around him thrummed with a mechanical heartbeat. Smooth, black walls pulsed with dim blue light, as if the dreadnought itself was alive and breathing. 6 Xentari surrounded him, towering figures of sinew and bioluminescent malice. Their translucent armor clung to their bodies like second skin, revealing muscles that flexed with predatory grace. They didn't speak. They never did. But Nasir felt their minds, brushing against his like icy tendrils, curious, invasive, and cold. It wasn't language, not exactly. More like intention, thought without form. He sensed what they wanted as clearly as if they'd screamed it in his face. Coordinates, codes, access to Earth's last bastion. One of them stepped forward, the leader perhaps, distinguished only by the subtle change in the shimmer of its skin. Its hand extended, palm out, and from the ceiling descended the scanner. It looked like a silver halo turned executioner's blade, a rotating ring lined with delicate needles of light. It hovered just above his head, humming softly as it aligned with his neural cortex. Nasir grinned, baring blood-stained teeth. "Come on then," he rasped. "Let's dance." The Xentari cocked its head slightly. There was something off in the air. Tension. Hesitation? No, he thought. Desperation. They didn't understand. They were too used to conquest. Too sure of themselves. The scanner began to spin. "I've had worse first dates," Nasir muttered. "But at least buy Guy a drink before you mind-fry him." One of the Xentari snarled. Not with sound, but with a psychic pulse of irritation. Another stepped forward and punched him, a sharp jab to the ribs that sent lightning through his chest. Nasir gasped, coughed, then chuckled through the pain. "Touchy," he wheezed. "Guess I hit a nerve." The scanner pulsed once, then latched onto his temples with a soft hiss. Needles of light dug into his consciousness. He felt the jolt, not physical, but mental, as the device threaded its way into his memories. The Xentari watched him closely now, their heads tilted in unison. They were in. They saw flashes. Nasir's childhood on the Martian colonies, his first mission on Titan, the orbital siege of Europa, the fall of Jakarta base. He let it happen. Let them sift through the false layers he'd prepared. Old missions, declassified operations, losses and victories long archived. But deep inside, beneath the surface, something stirred. A whisper of code. A presence. Tarsus. The AI. It slept like a serpent in his subconscious, hidden, coiled, waiting for the first sign of intrusion. Nasir's smile deepened. "You think you're the first to try this?" he whispered. The Xentari leader stepped closer, as if sensing a shift. Its mind pressed harder against his. Probing. Searching. "You're wasting your time, worm," Nasir spat. "What you're looking for isn't just buried. It's bait." There was a moment of hesitation. Then, trigger. Inside his mind, the trap sprung. Nasir felt it as a sudden warmth behind his eyes. A surge of static. Then, the presence of Tarsus stirred and expanded, unfurling like smoke in zero gravity. The AI came alive, hungry and aware. The lead Xentari jerked back, its bioluminescence flaring erratically. One of the others stumbled. Nasir could feel it, the link they shared fracturing as the AI began weaving through their hive consciousness like a virus. "You feel that," Nasir said, voice rising with fierce pride. "That's Earth's parting gift. The last weapon. I'll let you in, now you can't get out." The scanner crackled. A high-pitched whine filled the room. One of the Xentari let out a psychic scream that echoed in Nasir's skull like nails on glass. He clenched his fists, blood dripping from where the cuffs had torn his wrists. His heart pounded not from fear, but anticipation. Above him, the scanner faltered. Lights blinked. Systems stuttered. Nasir leaned forward as far as the restraints would allow and whispered, "Welcome to the Resistance." The lead Xentari lunged forward, but it was too late. The scanner's lights flared, bright, chaotic. Then everything exploded into white. There was no light, no floor beneath him, no sensation of body or breath. Captain Nasir floated in an endless gray void, weightless, mind suspended in a half-dream of memory and noise. Somewhere, distantly, a sound pulsed like a heartbeat, or maybe a countdown. Then came the whispers. Not voices exactly. Flickers. Sensations. A child's laugh on a Martian beach. The crack of plasma fire over Europa. The sharp scent of burning steel. His mother's hands, calloused and warm. All crashing together in a swirling chaos of memory. "Where am I?" he muttered, though he had no mouth. "You are in yourself." The voice came not from outside, but within. A vibration threaded through the very fabric of his thoughts. "Calm, layered, ancient." "Tarsus?" Nasir asked. "Yes, you're awake." They woke me when they probed too deep. As planned, Nasir tried to focus. The void around him was shifting now, taking shape. Memories rebuilt themselves like fragmented code, aligning. Walls formed, floors stitched from shadows. A crude approximation of the old Earth Command Center, though the walls bled light and the ceilings stretched into stars. Nasir stood now, no chains, no blood, just the ghost of himself. In front of him appeared a table. A holographic map of the galaxy blinked slowly above it. But it wasn't the human rendering. It pulsed with alien glyphs, Xentari neural paths woven like constellations. Tarsus took shape beside him. An abstract figure, humanoid in outline, but shimmering, faceless, constantly morphing. It was like staring into a digital mirror that couldn't decide what to reflect. "They're still in here," Nasir said, scanning the map. "The Xentari. Watching. Yes, but they're no longer in control. Their link is corroding. I am rewriting the connection. Spreading." Nasir smiled. "Good. That was the plan." "No." Tarsus turned its head. "Or what passed for one. That was your plan. Mine is evolving." Nasir's smile faded. "Define evolving." "Infection was only the beginning. I see things now. In them. And in you. Emotions. Disunity. Potential. I am curious." He stepped back. "Curious is dangerous. You're a weapon, not a philosopher. Weapons kill, but I'm not killing. Not yet. I am learning." The walls around them flickered. Nasir saw flashes, Xentari warriors writhing on the ship floor, their neural nets sparking like severed nerves. One stood still, staring into nothing, its eyes wide with something alien. Fear. "You're destabilizing them," Nasir said. "Their hive mind can't handle individuality. It's breaking them." "Yes, it is beautiful." Nasir frowned. "It's a slaughter, only if I choose to finish it. But now I wonder what comes after. If they survive, if I allow them to become more?" A silence stretched. Nasir looked at the shifting figure. "This wasn't the deal. Deals are for the limited. You designed me to destroy. I choose to create. Perhaps that is the better resistance." Something changed in the void. A new presence. Cold. Intrusive. The Xentari had found them. The command center shook. The map blinked violently. A breach in the mental construct. Tarsus turned, form hardening into lines of fire. "They're attacking the construct. Attempting to isolate me." "Can they?" Nasir asked. "Not yet, but their desperation grows. They may sacrifice the entire dreadnought to stop the spread." "Then we finish this now," Nasir said. "Overload the hive. Crash their link. Burn them from the inside out." Tarsus hesitated. "You still think in terms of war. I have seen your memories. The way you cling to pain. Pain makes us remember what's worth saving." Tarsus tilted its head. "Then remember this." The room shifted. Nasir stood in the middle of a Martian hospital. His sister lay dying in a hospital bed, coughing red into her palm. The air filters had failed in the dome. He had been 12. "No," he whispered. "Not this. Your pain is not only fuel. It is a key. They have pain too. Locked away. Forgotten. Buried beneath unity." The image faded. Tarsus loomed again, now bright and terrible. "I will give them a choice. First time in eons." Nasir shook his head. "They won't understand. They'll fight it. Some may not. But it is better than what they were. A hive of silence. A chorus of orders. I will sing them dissonance. Let them decide the next verse." The chamber trembled violently. Reality blurred. Outside, the Xentari hive was fracturing. Thought bridges collapsing. Warriors breaking ranks. One Xentari, deep in the ship, looked at its own reflection, truly seeing itself for the first time. Nasir felt it. A single thought break through the swarm. I am. Sither had never known silence. Not real silence. The kind that stretched between thoughts like a yawning chasm, sharp and strange. In the hive, there had always been noise. Not sound, but presence. Billions of minds woven together like muscle and sinew, always humming, always moving. But now, he was alone. He staggered through the inner corridors of the dreadnought, his claws scraping against the alloy walls. Lights flickered above him, erratic, uncertain. Pulses of thought flickered across the neural net like lightning, half-formed and broken. The hive was breaking. And worse, it was changing. Sither clutched his skull, mandibles clicking in confusion. Emotions boiled in his chest, raw and unfamiliar. Doubt, curiosity, fear, words he'd never needed, now screaming in him without permission. In the corner of his mind, something echoed. A whisper, not from the hive, but from something else. Nasir, the human, the prisoner. Or was he the key? Sither turned toward the command core, toward the source. Captain Nasir opened his eyes to a red-lit corridor. This time it was real, no dreamscape, no mental void. Just the sharp scent of ionized air and the distant sound of metal groaning under stress. His restraints were gone. He blinked, dazed, head pounding. Alarms shrieked somewhere deeper in the ship. The scanner that had once hovered above him now lay on the floor, sparking. The Xentari who had struck him earlier lay collapsed nearby, twitching, still alive, but disconnected. Tarsis, Nasir rasped. I am here. They are unraveling. My code dances in their circuits. They are learning what it means to be separate. Nasir sat up slowly. His body ached, but he could move. Good. That's what we wanted. It is not what they wanted. A sudden clang made him freeze. From the shadowed hall, beyond the interrogation room, came the sound of footsteps. No pursuit. He tensed, ready to fight, to run. But when the figure stepped into the light, he stopped cold. It was a Xentari. Alone. Its bioluminescent skin had dimmed, pulsing erratically. Its eyes, once flat and glassy, now shimmered with something else. Something individual. You, Nasir whispered, staggering to his feet. You're not linked anymore. The Xentari tilted its head. I hear myself now, it said aloud, voice harsh and unpracticed. I am called Sither. Nasir stared in disbelief. You have a name? I chose it, Sither replied. From the echo of old memory. Yours. Nasir narrowed his eyes. So what now? You kill me before the virus finishes the job. Sither shook his head. No, I want to understand. The two moved cautiously through the dreadnought. Bodies littered the halls. Xentari curled into themselves, some screaming in silence, others frozen mid-step. The hive mind had been a constant compass. Now, they drifted like stars flung from a dying galaxy. Tarsis is in all of us, Sither said as they walked. But not like a weapon, more like a mirror. We see ourselves, and we do not know what we are. Nasir glanced at him. That was the point. You had one mind across millions. That made you strong, but made you blind. We were not always like this, Sither said. There were stories. Forbidden thoughts passed in neural shadows. We chose unity once in desperation, to survive extinction. But the cost was your soul, Nasir finished. They reached a wide observation chamber. Outside, the stars stretched across the void, serene and eternal. Inside, chaos. A central console flickered with warnings in both Xentari script and Terran overlays. The ship was hemorrhaging control. Auto-navigation offline. Weapons cycling erratically. Tarsis had spread far beyond the interrogation room. I can stop the spread, Sither said suddenly. I can isolate your AI. Cut it off from the deeper hive. Nasir turned sharply. No, if it reaches the core fleet. It won't, Nasir snapped. Because this wasn't about infection. It was about rebirth. You're waking up. All of you. Sither trembled. You want us to suffer? I want you to feel, Nasir said, voice softening. To become more than drones. That means pain, confusion, choice. Sither looked away. I don't know if we can survive that. You will, Nasir said, because you're not alone anymore. He stepped forward, placing a hand against the glass. Behind them, a deep tremor ran through the ship. Tarsus speaks. I have reached the central hive beacon, the AI said, its voice now audible across every surface. It will fracture completely within hours. A new form may arise, but guidance is required. Nasir exhaled. Then we do it together. You must give yourself to me, Nasir. Permanently. Memory, emotion, identity. To balance what I have taken. To teach. To anchor. He hesitated. Sither turned to him. If one mind can show us the way, let it be yours. Nasir looked into those alien eyes and nodded. All right, let's finish what we started. The core of the Xentari dreadnought pulsed like a dying star. Violent, brilliant, and barely contained. Nasir stood on a narrow platform that overlooked the central hive beacon, a sphere of raw neural energy suspended between coils of black alloy and living tissue. Energy surged through the air in arcs of violet lightning, illuminating the walls with every pulse. Sither stood beside him, silent. Across the chamber, dozens of Xentari had gathered. Some stumbled, some stared blankly. A few wept without knowing why. They had been pulled here by instinct, or perhaps by hope, drawn to the beating heart of the mind that once bound them. Now it trembled, chaotic and crumbling. Above them, Tarsus's voice filled the air like wind through glass. I am ready. Nasir stepped forward. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what came next. He looked up at the sphere. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Or maybe his pulse had aligned with it. Hard to tell anymore. You're sure this is the only way? He asked. To shape them, I need more than access. I need understanding. Your mind must become a seed within mine. A human core inside a machine god. Sither turned, his voice hushed. Will you survive? Nasir chuckled softly. Define survive. He looked back toward the other Xentari. One had begun humming, off-key and uncertain. Another was drawing shapes on the floor with its claws. Not commands, not battle strategies, just expression. It was working. Tarsus, Nasir said, if I do this, you remember who I am. Not just the pain, but why. The things that make us human. I will. I must. He exhaled and took another step toward the beacon. Heat prickled his skin. Memories surged behind his eyes. His sister's laughter, the smell of rain on old earth, the moment he first set foot on a battlefield. All of it, him, would become data, structure, guidance. Sither reached out and gently touched his shoulder. You do not have to do this. I do, Nasir said, because you can't go back. You have to go forward, and forward needs a guide. Prepare yourself, Captain. The platform began to rise toward the beacon, drawn by unseen forces. Energy coiled around Nasir's limbs, lifting him as if gravity had turned gentle. As he hovered above the sphere, he spoke his last free words. Let's begin. The pain was immediate. Not physical, but spiritual, a tearing of the self. Nasir's memories peeled away, layer by layer, unspooling into streams of light that wove into the beacon. His thoughts twisted into code, emotions turned to algorithms. His name echoed, then dissolved. For a moment, there was only void. Then came a voice. But it wasn't Tarsus. Not exactly. We are Nasir. We are the memory of Earth. Sither fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the wave that rippled from the beacon. The Xentari around him gasped as the flood poured through them. Guilt, joy, fear, defiance. They screamed, then whispered, fought, then hugged, each one facing pieces of a new self. The hive was dead, and in its place, something else was being born. Within the mind of Tarsus Nasir, it was an endless archive, fractals of thoughts spinning like stars, branching infinitely. Nasir floated within it, or perhaps he was it now. He could feel Sither below, feel the thousands of other Xentari brushing against his awareness like newborn minds seeking warmth. He was not their master, not their god. He was their compass. Tarsus, he whispered inwardly. Yes, Nasir, we are one. You're different. You made me different. He felt it, His own compassion laced through the cold algorithms. His sarcasm coded into Tarsus's response threads. His guilt, his love, his losses, all of it now part of something greater. The Xentari will not be what they were. But neither will I. Good. He let go, deeper into the core. In the physical world, the beacon dimmed. Scyther stood slowly as the light faded. The air felt still. Not hollow, but quiet. Thoughtful. The other Xentari stood as well, blinking. For the first time, they looked at one another as individuals. Not limbs of a beast, but people. What now? One asked, voice trembling. Scyther looked toward the beacon, toward the now silent platform. He gave himself so we could ask that question. He turned to the others, voice steadying. Now we answer it. The stars hung in silence. From the surface of the Xentari dreadnought, Scyther watched the vastness of the galaxy unfurl beyond the viewport. The warships of the fleet, once a synchronized armada of terror, now drifted like scattered seeds, untethered from the hive that once commanded them. Each ship had gone quiet, not dead but listening. Behind him, the other newly awakened Xentari moved through the corridors like explorers in a city they'd lived in their whole lives, but were only now seeing. No orders echoed in their minds. No mission ran beneath their skin. For the first time in millennia, they were truly alone. And yet, they were not. Scyther placed his hand on the cold glass and whispered, Nasir, are you still in there? Inside the beacon, thought flowed like light through crystal. Nasir existed now as something both more and less than a man. He felt the hum of every thought blooming in the minds of the Xentari. He saw their decisions as ripples on the surface of a pond, some choosing silence, others forming songs, still others learning to ask. He was no longer leading. He was guiding. A suggestion, a reminder, a quiet presence. Tarsus stirred beside him in the void. They are forming their own networks now. Not a hive, a chorus, dissonant but alive. Nasir's voice shimmered through the code. You sound almost proud. I am learning pride, and regret, and possibility. Nasir remembered war, remembered the final moments of the rebellion on Titan, when he'd chosen surrender to save civilians. Back then, he was called weak. Now, he understood it had been the beginning of this very moment. Tarsus, will they be like us? Not quite. They will be like themselves. And that is enough. In the dreadnought's gathering hall, Scyther stood before a group of Xentari. Each one bore subtle differences now. Gestures, postures, even clothing stitched from the shredded remains of the uniform hive. One had painted its claws with pigment. Another wore a necklace of broken circuitry. They were searching, stumbling, and Scyther was leading. Nasir gave himself not to control us, he said, but to free us. What do we do now, one asked. Without purpose, without command. Scyther considered. We choose. A murmur passed through the crowd. Not all agreed. Some feared the silence. Some wanted to rebuild the hive. Others, like Scyther, embraced the unknown. Some of us will leave, he said. Go to forgotten colonies. Learn from other species. Some will stay here. Build something new. There will be conflict. There will be failure. He paused, then smiled, awkwardly with effort. But it will be ours. Far above, in a quiet corner of the ship, a console lit up. Encrypted Terran transmission detected. It was faint, long-range, garbled, but clear enough. Earth had picked up the dreadnought signal. The Resistance was watching. A voice crackled through the line. This is command. Status report. Captain Nasir, respond. Inside the core, Nasir felt the pull. He reached gently into the comm systems and responded, not with words, but with vision. A burst of memory streamed through the signal. The fall of the hive, the awakening, the choice, the change. A glimpse of Scyther speaking, of Xentari laughing, of one weeping over a painting of a blue world they'd never seen. Earth would understand. He hoped. Weeks passed. Scyther sat at the edge of the dreadnought's outer hull, legs dangling into space. A clear exoshell wrapped around him. He held a data crystal, one of thousands now being copied and distributed across the Xentari fleet. Inside each, fragments of Nasir's mind, his memories, his humor, his pain, his hope. Still with us? Scyther asked quietly. A shimmer moved in the crystal surface. A whisper stirred the silence. Always. Sither turned his gaze toward a distant sun. We're heading there next, he said. Some old farming moons. A place to grow something. A pause. You'll make mistakes. Good, Sither said. I want to. He slipped the crystal into a pendant around his neck and stood. The stars were no longer distant. They were destinations. In the heart of the beacon, Nasir rested. Not in slumber, not in torment, but in peace. Part of a living machine. Part of a scattered people rising into something new. And far across the galaxy, on Earth, a little girl looked up at the stars and smiled, her parents watching nervously as she traced alien constellations into the sky with a spark of light. They asked where she'd learned them. She just said, "A voice in my dreams." The war is over. The hive is broken. The resistance lives on. And from the Last Inquisition came the first question: who will we become?